Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and we're going to be going over the RSM Classic. We're going to take a look at some plays and also do, I think, quite a bit of work on lineup construction today. We're going to use SaberSim, and if I have time, I'll use one of the other sim products also. But we'll definitely do at least the SaberSim builds. It's a little late getting all the projections up here. First thing that we do, again, before we even get into the plays, is I like to make sure that the SaberSim entry files are already loaded. So as you can see, I'm playing 150 in the sand trap, 150 in the drive the green, one entry in the signature hole, one in the par four, and four trying to get that qualifier. I missed by 1 point last week, so now I'm officially on tilt. So I want to make sure I want to play this a couple of entries. Okay. And the reason why we put these in is it preloads all of the information on entries, prize pool, and then the field lineups will automatically populate once we run the sims. If we opt to use the predefined lineups that SaberSim provides, we could try to use our own as well, but that's needless to say extremely difficult to do. So first things first, let's go into build 2 here, and we will upload our projections, and then we'll actually take a look at it using a different view here. Let me pull out this Excel file, which is going to show it in a little easier. PGA Proj, and then we'll take a look at it. And then we'll do a little bit of we'll spot check a couple of things here when we look at these. All right. So for those who are premium subscribers, this is what you're going to get on TrueDFS. You'll have a separate file for this, and also this will be preloaded to SaberSim if you have a SaberSim and SaberSim package as well. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tie these projections, the one that I have, together with a couple of substantive takes that Rick Rungood came up with. Now, again, I have no problem shouting him out and stealing, I guess, his takes, but because it's from his free video. And I do subscribe myself to his premium stuff as well, but what I'm going to remind you guys of is stuff that came from his free video. So I certainly do encourage you guys to support him in any way possible. And he does a tremendous job this particular tournament, really focusing in on what skill sets are needed on this course or these courses. He does that on every slate that he breaks down. But if you take a look at his YouTube video, just the early look at this slate, I think from Monday or Tuesday, you're going to see some really in-depth, but not too in-depth analysis of what type of skill set you're going to be looking for here. And what I like to do is really see if his takes substantively kind of match up, at least in some degree, with my projections. Because they don't always. And I would say that they rarely do. So when they do match up, I give those plays a little more oomph, so to speak. And that's an analytical term. I have to pause you guys for just a sec. Sorry about that. So what we're looking at here are the rankings of the players listed by, you could filter these however we want, but by something called Sheets Value Score, which is essentially my take on kind of the combination of raw fantasy points and point per dollar. And I do like to just get a quick look at it from this perspective before we start building to see what to expect and to reinforce the substantive plays that I was kind of alluding to. So right here at the top, you have JJ Spawn and Andrew Novak. And these guys, I don't think I've seen this yet this season. Such an alignment between my actual models and projections as they line up with what Rick was saying in his substantive review. So I think both of these two plays are extremely strong core plays. Another one I will highlight here is Patrick Fishburne. He's another one that showed up in a couple of his course fit models, which again, when you combine that with showing up in my sheet's value score model and relatively low ownership, I think that's not bad. Couple of others to kind of highlight here. Seamus Power, 9,200. He's another one that showed up in both. Jacob Bridgman showed up in both. Matt Kuchar actually showed up in both. Other guys, Matt Wallace. He was a really good player. Eckroad, Nicholas Echevarria. These all are ones I want to make sure I get overweight on. What else here? Joe Highsmith was mentioned. Michael McCarty was mentioned, but now we're not getting to where these plays are lined up. Now we're getting to where they're kind of like lower on the list. But I will probably make sure to bump all these up into, where I make sure to get at least some of them, if not a decent amount of them. Now, the first decision that you're going to have to make, or the Saberson will make for you, whatever, is to what degree to play Ludwig Oberg. Now, again, it's an easy spot in that the field is relatively weak, given his skill set and his rankings and his stats. But he's off a very long layoff after an injury, I believe. So we wouldn't be surprised if he came back a little bit flat. Now, how much of that is factored into the projections? And that's a question, again, that you always have to ask when you have this kind of extraneous take is how much of what you just said has already been factored in. My initial instinct is that it is not factored in. There's no way to model that. There's no way to model for layoff. There's no way to model for effective injury. It's not like the NBA where you could reduce a player's minutes if you think that they're hurt, or a player's minutes if you think they're coming off a layoff and need to be managed a little bit. Here, you just have a golfer that you're basing, most projections are based on some type of recent form or recent plus long-term form. So that's all you really have to go on here. So I do think that the Oberg projection is probably overstated, which means that you probably should get, should get less than the field of him, unless, of course, the field is gonna know the same thing, But I think that in general, people do like to play the guys they've heard of, and Aberg is, one of the more popular just golfer names right now, especially compared to everybody else in this slate. So I think when people start building, they will find that you can get to the Ludwig Aberg, pretty easily with a lot of value out there. So I think he'll end up being that 30% owned that you see as his ownership projection. The reason why I think that people are going to get to him pretty easily is in the absence of really good, like 10 or 9K guys, you don't feel like you're giving anything up when you play an 11K with a bunch of sevens, where, these guys at 11K in like the Masters or whatever it is, or in these bigger tournaments with more full field are more difficult to get to because they're actually really good close plays in 10K, 9Ks that people want to play. But here, honestly, nobody really cares whether they're playing Maverick McNeely at 9,100 or Michael Kim at 7,500. You know what I mean? It's all the same in people's heads. So that's why the Aberg play is going to be, again, probably somewhat overowned, I believe. So if we get less of him, that's kind of a good thing. The Matt Kuchar play is kind of an interesting one because he is showing up in both Rick's course fit models plus my projections. He's just not the type of guy I usually like to play. He doesn't really carry all that much upside, but he's very consistent, or at least has the reputation for being consistent. But the thing is, you don't really need to win at 7,600, So in general, in DFS, I'd like to play the young up-and-coming guys at the ceiling, though. So between, say, him at 7,600 and Jacob Bridgman at 7,600, I would rather play Jacob Bridgman. Between him at 7,600 and Patrick Fishburne at 7,600, I'd rather pay him. I'd rather play Sam Stevens. So even Mark Hubbard at 7,500, I think I'd rather play him than Kuchar. But we'll get a decent amount of Kuchar anyway, regardless of what we do. So I think this is all okay. The other thing I want to do is I want to double check the ownership projections here for a minute. Yeah, so we're actually close to a full set of ownership projections. It actually says 608, so we have a couple of guys over projected. You know, it's supposed to add up to 600, right? You have 6 times 100%. So it is coming in a little bit lower, higher. So the ownership projection is somewhere a little bit flawed, but it's not too bad. Okay. So we may as well just run these and see what this looks like. We already uploaded the projections. We have our contests in, and then we're just going to build 5,000 lineups. And then we're going to take a couple of looks and see how that build looks just using the Sabre score approach, and also what that looks like when you run the sims. And what we can try is we could run the sims both using their stock footage, so to speak, their stock field lineups, and we could also try to sim our 5,000 against ourselves. And that's kind of a thing that's been going around the industry nowadays, whether or not that's a good thing. I started doing that for tennis, more so than some of the other sports, just because I think that doing that makes sense when the projections are pretty tight. In other words, if everybody's pretty close to what these golfers project at, and as a result, the 5,000 lineups are going to be pretty predictable. I think that building your own set makes some sense. See, what you're doing is you're comparing that technique to using a Sabre Sim build, which is completely dependent on Sabre Sim's ownership. Okay, or for the most part, when Sabre Sim tells you what their field size is or what their field looks like, it's usually based on their own ownership. So, what's better? Doing a lineup build which is based on kind of an I don't say industry wide, but it depends on how confident you are with your projections. If you think that your projections are better or more representative of what the field is going to do, for example, than Sabre Sim's projections are, then use yours as your as your contest field. If you're clueless and you don't know, right, whether your set is going to be better than Sabre Sim, then just use the Sabre Sim field. So it's just better that way. So first things first, let's take a look at what we're getting without doing any sims. We'll be getting, it looks like 88% Spawn, 49% Novak, essentially all the good plays. Now, let's take a look at what this is all about. So the way this is ranking them is by something called Golf Main. What that means, if we go into the eyeball here, see what Golf Main is. Golf Main eyeball. It's show up right around here, right? Should. Used to. There it is. Oops. Yeah, a little testy here. Let's see. Hold on. Okay. So the formula is 0.4 times the sum of the projections plus the 99th percentile outcome of the lineup, which is important, minus the 0.5 times average ownership. So this is a pretty aggressive approach. So you could, be well within your rights to just put in this group. It is a very aggressive way to rank these lineups. The only thing I would say is that you should probably get a little bit more diverse and require that these lineups are at least more than just have one different golfer per lineup. So how do you do that? Well, we could just increase the min uniques, but how do we know if by increasing the min uniques, we're not just costing ourselves so much in projection at integrity by doing that? So the first, what I like to do is you can put aggregate metrics, and then we'll put in just the average salary. No, the average projected score of this build. Now this is 306. So let's just do the top 150, I guess, for now. We got to go back to 306 to fill in these other contests, but 150. You see the average projection is 437.8. So what we want to do is we want to go min uniques as many min uniques as we can to get as diverse as we can without costing ourselves this average projection score too much. So you go to min uniques 2, it gets to 436. That's not bad. Go to min uniques 3, it gets to 431. So that's a 5-point drop. And then we're going to min uniques 4, and there's a 6-point drop. And then min uniques 5, you can't even get those, like only 20 lineups total, right? So you can't even get there. As a matter of fact, could you even go to min uniques 4? No. So min uniques 3 is the best you can do, and it doesn't really affect the average projections too much. So I would probably, if I were not going to sim this, just go with this, load these lineups up, and this is kind of the distribution we would get. 52% spawn, and this is actually a pretty good core group of golfers. Pause here for a second, then we're going to run sims next. Okay, so now let's run the contest sims, and we're going to use the stock the stock sims from, we're not going to change anything, so we're going to run these. And again, for those of you doing this for the first time, what this is allegedly doing is taking our 5,000 lineups and comparing them to what SaberSim believes the field is going to do, and actually calculate the EV of the ROI of each lineup based on that presumption of what the field is in fact going to do. When you look in here, ooh, this is interesting. Field lineups. Yeah, so it's just basing on SaberSim ownership. It's not actually. See, usually or sometimes it has a specific lineup for this particular contest. Maybe not in golf anymore. I'm not sure. So if this is the case, I don't think I want to do this. Like, I don't want to use that field if it's just going to be based on the SaberSim ownership. I have more confidence in the lineups that the 5,000 are going to build, So we're going to change these to builds, build 2, build. So you see what I'm doing here? So we're changing what fields we're going to compare our 5,000 lineups to, from the field that just basically just goes with SaberSim ownership, and build 2, which, and build 2, which is the 5,000 that I created based on what I think are a pretty good set of projections. So as you'll see, it's building with this build 2 here, the sim settings. Let's see the difference with what ends up happening here. So you see it kind of crunch these a little bit, and it makes sense because when you looked at our lineups, we were getting a whole bunch of spawn. And if we're getting a whole bunch of spawn, that means he's probably, a little bit too popular in that set. So we want to get a little bit less of him. So this, using our 5,000 lineup set as the representative field, kind of, diversifies our lineups a little bit more here. So we're still getting Spawn as our top owned guy, but it's a little bit less so. The other thing I will note is that I did start at Min Uniques 3. So let's go back to Min Uniques 1 and see again. Now what we can do is, again, go keep increasing the Min Uniques to 1, 2, and 3 and use an average projection as our baseline. Or we can look at this min destination ROI. So let's just see. So 430 and 77. Then we go to 429 and 74. That's not bad. Then we go to 427 and 49. That's not bad. Then we go down to 422, but now we don't have enough lineups. So again, same problem. And the other problem also is that I want to play 306 lineups. I want to play all unique lineups. So let's see if we can even get there. 306. It won't even get there. So go to Min Uniques 2. And the average projection really doesn't change all that much. So you could argue that this is another way to play. Like I think that you could play either, really, the build where you simmed, or the build where you just use that kind of aggressive approach. Now, there's one other thing that we need to do if we're going to put these lineups in is kind of break ties. In other words, let's say that so what we're going to do is we're going to fill these lineups to all these contests. Okay. Source bill 1. And when we do that, sometimes maybe a lineup is going to show up in multiple sims. So we're making a decision now to not include them in multiple contests. So the question is how do we rank them? Like if it's going to appear in every contest, for example, how do we rank them? And so what I think is reasonable is you rate it by fee. I'd mess around with this. I think this is good because it's more important to get it right in the ones where you only have one entry and it's 555, for example. And we're going to rate it by ROI, Min Uniques 2. And this is kind of cool. When you hit save to contest, you're going to see source, and it's going to change to build 2, 239, build 2, 239. And you'll see it actually, see, build 2, 239, exactly. And so now it saved these for you. And then you can go ahead and just immediately just enter them. Now another thing you could do if you wanted to, okay, is this, and this can be fun. I did 2 kind of builds, right? One simming and one. Well, actually, I did 3, right? One simming with I didn't do the Saber Sim ownership one, although I think maybe I did. And I also did the ones with the regular Saber score. What I think is a reasonable presumption, although I have never tested this, is what if the lineup appeared in all 3 sims? I think that it would be fair to say that those are probably, really good. So one thing you can do if you want is try to figure out which lineups are like really unique and which ones are duped. So we can play around with that a little bit if you want. Yeah, let's go ahead. So let's go back to build 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to take 300 lineups, and this is going to be using the simming, right? So let's save these for now. I'll show you what I'm going to do in a second. Oops. This one's has saved. So we'll save this one to CSV. What we're really going to do is we're going to save it into this dupe calculator. And what we're going to do, check this out. So, and I'll send this to you guys if you want. It might be on the site already. Let's just see under, where do I keep it? Under tools, dupe test. So what we're going to do is I'm going to, we have this macro written where it can filter out lineups that are repeated. So let's first just go put these 300 lineups in here like this. Boom. Oops. Hold on. We'll get it from over here. Sorry. $306 lineups or whatever. So put these over here. And then what I'll do is I'll take, say, the 300 lineups from the golf main one. Remember those? Okay. So then we will, we went to Mini Leagues 3 for that, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So then we'll download these. And then those are only 256, so it couldn't even make that, right? So we're Mini Leagues 2, sorry. So this one will save. And then we'll put that into this dupe calculator here. And then what we'll do is we'll then remove duplicate lineups. And I wonder, out of those 612 lineups, how many of them are actually unique? Like, how many of them are duped? Now, technically, the ones that are duped are the ones we're going to want because they're showing up in multiple different sims. So here, check this out. So in the dupes, we have 55 lineups. So these are 55 like super duper strong lineups, I would argue. So then what we can do is then we can go back into the sims and let's give it a break. Let's put the let's go back into contests. We'll resim using the Saber Sim ownership. Saber Sim ownership. We'll come back into this build 2, and then we will run this new contest sim. Sometimes it's a little slow. There it goes. Okay. So we'll target contest ROI. And let's just confirm that it was done with the right, yep, Saber Sim ownership. And let's download these. And I'll do this off screen. No, actually, I don't have to. I'll bring this over here. So we'll copy these into remove dupes as well. Okay. And then again, we will remove duplicate lineups. And now we'll see what we have left. Maybe we get up to 80 or 100. I don't know. Let's see. As far as dupes, right? We want lineups that have appeared in multiple sims. like it's be in a bad mood. There you go. So now we have, what do we got? Well, these are all duped. Look at this. So we have 306 lineups that appeared in multiple sims. So this is what we're going to want. Is exactly what we're going to want. So let's put these in here. Copy these, and then, well, how do we determine which goes where? Well, we could sample them. We could just do it at random. There's a lot of things that we can do, but that'll be for another video. But for now, let's just put the top ones in the bigger buy-ins of the lottery. Okay, I like that. So the top 150, I guess. So I'm going 2 through 151. Put those in the bigger buy-in, I guess. And then the others, like 152 through 301, I guess. Put those in the $5. And then we'll keep these big buy-ins the same, like for now. Save, upload, and we should be in business. So what did we do, right? So we took, we looked at the projections, and then we ran the stuff, and we used many different sources, different lineup rating systems. Ooh, Levert's out. And what we did was we found those lineups that were appealing no matter which way that you analyzed it. And I found 306 good lineups. I put them in. Now, if you want to see the exposures, we could look at that. As it turns out, we ended up getting, pretty much what we expected. But the actual lineup construction was kind of created intelligently, to hopefully maximize our ROI in a particular contest that we were in. That's going to do it. Hopefully that was instructive. Good luck, everybody.